Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Racers Driving League for Season 21, Round 2 of the Championship. Welcome to the Shanghai International Circuit for the Chinese Grand Prix and the second race of what hopefully still continues to be a very entertaining era of RDL racing, of course. If you just joined us after the race last week, it was a very exciting affair, as it always is around Albert Park, obviously, but brought into play the new regulations to Active Aero, the use of overtake boostment, everything new to the sport for 2026, and Grumio came out on top. But this week we are without Grumio, so things looking like a slightly more wide open contest, as last week's winner came through to end up not racing in this evening's affairs, and we may not be here for next week either. We'll have to wait and see until we get word on that, as the first few cars take to the circuit here in Shanghai, getting their first taste of the regulations around this circuit. Of course, Australia has always been a bit more of a chaotic race in previous seasons, even with the ground effect cars, so we might see a sort of return to normalcy here by comparison to last week's entertainment in that sense. And we'll see exactly who comes out on top. Obviously, quite hot in the UK at the moment, quite hot for the majority of our contestants. So the question here tonight will be who can beat the heat and come out on top around what is normally quite an enjoyable circuit to race, new regulations or no. So the first few cars out on circuit here, being led out by the Cadillac of Shadow Rain, reserving in place tonight for Remco, as far as I know. Of course, Cadillac failed to register a point in their opening Grand Prix, one of 4 teams who didn't score. Of course, the big shock being Ferrari, who didn't post a single championship point post-Stewart report. Of course, Pope finished inside the points, if memory serves, and came back from a run in the first corner in last week's Grand Prix, came through to finish up in the top 5, but from there got a post-race penalty applied, which pushed him down to P11, just outside of the points, and that leaves both him and Imrie scoreless after that first round. But of course, heading to the race that Imrie is the defending winner of going into tonight, so hopefully we'll see if he can go back-to-back around Shanghai, especially with no Grumio in the picture, who was his main challenger at this race last season. But of course, qualifying didn't look as strong for Imrie last week, so we'll see whether he gets himself back on his toes here. Shadow Rain rounds the 16th and final corner, straight mode and an overtake boost in play on the run down towards turn 1, taking a very adverse line there, keeping the car to the right-hand side of the circuit as he goes into turn 1. Yellow flag behind, it's one of the slow cars into these last couple of corners. Unsure as to whether that's going to be one of the Haas cars. I believe it is. That will be Curtis, as far as I know. Curtis, the lone Haas in tonight's race. TJ not with us here yet to start a Grand Prix in season 21. And as I say, no Grumio. He's being replaced tonight by Cott, who of course ran last week's Grand Prix as well in reserve. Shadow Rain comes in here through turn 7, keeping the car nice and controlled. That Cadillac, of course, still looking, as I say, for their first points. The onus will be on Courtney Godwin to do that this week. They take a lot of curb. They're going in through turns 8 and towards turn 9, now 10. And on correct, it's straight mode in play. Was now on that little short shoot down towards turn number 11. There's 4 straight mode zones on this circuit. Well, the first one goes to go down towards someone where the old DRS straight used to be. Leaving turn 4, going down towards turn 6, of course, the little king for right-hander through turn 5. Down here at the exit of turn 13, heading down, of course, that very challenging hairpin at turn 14. And those are your 4 zones. I'd say the extra one down towards turn 11. So there we go. So 4 straight mode zones as opposed to our 2 DRS zones of old. So expect to see a lot more of these straight mode zones popping up over the course of the season. A bit of a slide there, a bit of a tap oversteer from Shadow Rain going into on corner entry. They're going into turn 14. But through 15 and now 16, that's the yellow line there, signaling the overtake boost for another lap. Of course, he stays regardless in qualifying. But first times on the board then, Shadow Rain 133.038 for Cadillac. Next car through is one of the Ferraris. It's Imrie goes faster. Pope in behind him starting his first lap. Imrie now on top with 132.557. PJ into third place. PJ, of course, took pole here several seasons ago now, back on F1 24 for Williams, if memory serves. So he puts himself into third place for the time being. But obviously, a lot of cars yet to come through. The next car will be, looks like it's HP Cook starting his first flying lap for VCarb. Curtis goes P4, 146.6. A lot more left on the table for Curtis. So the veteran's got some work to do here on his second run, I should think. And you see Cock going over the line here, had his first lap invalidated there. So tough break from 133.3 would have been enough to place him sort of around where PJ is. You see TTRE Harrison into third place there. Of course, Harrison running fantastically on full-time debut until the unfortunate incident occurring with Imrie, which brought the safety car with about 10 laps to go last time out in Australia. So looking to try and redeem himself as JB shoots there at the top of the board there, 132.551, and this could be the start potentially if a rejuvenated JB as Huff goes faster too. So several cars finding time early on here. The Red Bull of Huff now on top in just his second full-time start. 6th place, of course, after fifth place in last week's race. 10 points on the board for him, and 16 overall on the board for Red Bull after Webbsy came home with the 7th place spot last time out. Your podium, Grumio, Dan, and JB, as they took a podium last week in Australia, and has always been quite modest about his chances going into Grand Prix weekends. But whether we'll see him perhaps carry on at that fantastic form from the first round, of course, had a fair few things go his way over the course of the evening, but still drove superbly and came through to secure a podium finish after the steward's report was posted. So Pope into 4th place there. Imrie penalty. 5th place grid penalty for a collision with PJ going to the pit lane, and that's going to cost Imrie in terms of qualifying for the 2nd week in a row. We didn't get a penalty last week, but the qualifying pace wasn't all there in terms of on his usual form of one of the drivers who took the highest number of pole positions in last season. But Huff currently on top, speaking of provisional pole, 132.229. That's over 3/10 faster than 2nd place JB. 13 cars have come through and put laps in. 80 the slowest those cars so far, but I think on another lap here, and looking to redeem that lap time as he goes in through towards turn 16 now to complete that effort. And charging up towards the line here, we'll see what he can put himself into. It's a 132.4, much better from AT, and once again we find a silver arrow currently on the front row as it stands. JB into the pit lane now, running in 3rd place. Shadow Rain in P6, so doing quite well himself for Cadillac. Harrison down to 7th. It's Tim Cannon in P8, in front of her teammate Dan, who's yet to put a lap time in. HB Cook P9, Curtis P10, and the PJ is your top half in P11, but has avoided a penalty in his own sense. Obviously had that little sort of dust up there with Imrie going into the pit lane, of which Imrie's got a 5-place grid penalty. So that'll make things a bit tougher then on the defending race winner over the course of the evening. Webbsy there in P12, Ben P13, obviously his 2nd start since coming back from the commentary box where he spent last season with us. Lucky Lambert in P14, Cott in P15. There's Ethan, Cottony, Alvar, and Dan. There's bottom 5 yet to put lap times in. Cott's not a great luck so far in terms of keeping these times valid. He's put 2 laps in that set of soft tyres. Hasn't really made much progress, it seems. Oh, a car around in the background behind him, and that will be the Alpine of Harrison, who's lost the car, leaving at turn 10. Kept the car under wraps, no damage done to the Alpine, so he'll carry on his merry way. And we should, I imagine, see him back in the pit lane here at the end of this lap. I can't see him going in front of the lap on that set of soft tyres. Same thing as Cott, and same thing as Lucky Lambert, it seems. So both cars out on the circuit for a couple of laps here to put times in. AT, obviously, same thing. Had a very difficult first lap, had to come back and redeem himself, which he has done. So I think we'll see him into the pits this time. He's currently chasing his temporary teammate Cott into the pit lane. Cott stays out for another run, Rob. So Cott's still going here and looking to finish that lap off. It comes to the line, it's 133.1. Enough for 9th place. Obviously, reserve rules in play as always in the RDL. If a reserve driver finishes inside the points paying places, the points get dropped down a spot. So if one reserve finishes in the top 10, the points will go down to P11 and the reserve will be excluded from the race order. So as we say, purely pride on the line here for these reserve drivers. And obviously for Cott, just an opportunity to remind everyone that he's still got it. There's Ethan running in P16, slowest time so far for Audi, with he and PJ in the race. Ethan, of course, didn't start last week's race in Australia. Backing off to let one of the V-carbs through. That'll be Ben on his outlap. Is Ben currently P14 right now, 133.422. Finished P14 from his first outing down under last week. Waiting on Alvar to lead the pit lane. Of course, Alvar managed to get himself a point for Aston Martin last week after obviously it was a very difficult season for Alvar and Ericsson as a combo when they were driving for McLaren in season 20. Those two finished in P9 in the Constructors' Championship. After one round, they currently sit in P7, so 2 places up from their previous efforts. Of course, so only one race in, and I think we'll see points from Ferrari tonight, barring any sort of nasty surprises, such as that grid penalty for Imrie. Huff currently faster still, though. Red Bull on top for the time being. Webbsy, Huff's teammate, into the pit lane here, going very wide there, going through the entry out turn number 16. Puts the car in the pit lane nice and easy here. And that'll do it for his run for the time being. I think we'll see at least one more run from the majority of drivers here so far. Dan is currently out on circuit. Of course, was very competitive in last week's race. He obviously had the spin early on after an early collision fighting for the race lead. Came back to finish second. And it looks as though Dan French will prep for a tow of this teammate 10th Cannon. I'm not sure 10th knew Dan was coming there. That was very close. I imagine they must have had some communication in there, but I thought 10th would move over to the right-hand side. But both cars unscathed, and Dan's time doesn't seem to be impacted too much, so they'll carry on as they are. And into the last corner here, we'll see what Dan registers on the board. Up the line, it's going to be a 1:32.430. Still just over 0.2 slower than Huff, who's still on top as of right now. And of course, let's not forget, we are guaranteed to get a different race winner this season, as Grumio is not with us in tonight's race. So we're missing him, also missing Lime Cake, as far as I know. Of course, we're also missing TJ, as I say. I believe there's one more that we're missing. I'll get back to you on that as soon as I can. Ericsson is the one we're missing. There we go. Imri into second place there. Big lap. 1:32.296. And now within a tenth of Huff for the first time anyone is all day. As Huff takes a bit of a run off there at turn 14. Around he goes at 15. Brief slide, but that'll cut things off for his second flying lap here in qualifying. Let's go again. Into the pit lane he comes. He's got enough time to change onto a different set of tyres and go for one last run. Still 6 minutes to go, so still plenty of time for things to take a change. So just under 5 minutes to go, under 6 minutes to go, sorry. Down into the pit lane there, third place for him. AT in P4 now, so these guys who were sort of on top early on, slipping down the field here. JB still in P5, still a fantastic lap from the Williams driver, and 11 places above his teammate Lucky Lambert. Lucky, who also scored points last week, came in with a 9th place finish for the Grove-based outfit. And as a result, Williams now sitting in third place in the Constructors' Championship, 1 point behind McLaren and 1 point in front of Red Bull. But all three teams currently sitting 19, 20 and 21 points behind the championship leaders Mercedes, obviously taking first and fourth from last week. But I imagine there's a slight chance we may see them lose out on the lead here. Or there only being one driver for them in the race, that being AT. So the onus is on AT to try and get himself some points in tonight's race. That'll be the key for that team. TTR Harrison, they're currently in third place now, 1:32.320 on the board from his previous effort. Just come through and set that. 4.5 minutes still to come. Things looking to cloud over a little bit here. I'm not sure if we're going to see any rain during the Grand Prix, and that might obviously play into things. It'll be the first time that a lot of these guys have run an RDL race in these in these cars in those conditions. So something to keep an eye out for going forward. Whether we'll see any rain tonight, whether it'll be dry all the way through, we'll have to wait and see. Cannon's pit lane, P11 for her as it stands right now. So just in the top half of the field. If we had a full 22 car grid, she's currently first car in the bottom half. Only a few cars out on circuit as it stands right now. Curtis is on a lap for Haas. He's 26 seconds down, so we'll come back to him. Anyone close to the start of a lap? Here goes JB, looking for his second run, looking to try and find some time. As I say, a very strong lap from him so far here in qualifying. 1:32.551 for him to beat to try and improve. Only 0.3 off of Huff in P1. We'll see how much time JB can find here. See the top 13 all separates by less than a second right now. And it's 1.25 to the top 17. Alvar, the only anomaly there, being 2 seconds back from pole. And Courtney Goblin yet to put a lap in. The thing's all still awfully close here. 11 drivers who won the 132s. It's brilliant to see. JB down by a tenth there in the first sector. Right on board here as he goes in through turn 6. Keeping plenty of battery to go overtake towards turn 7. Still got half his tank left here as he makes his way out of turn 10. He's a little bit here along the straight mode, but he'll want to save a little bit here. You can see him using those Lyco techniques to try and get himself some more battery for the run down towards turn 14. It'll be crucial to not run out of energy here. Straight mode in play once again as he leaves turn 13, and he's obviously burned through a lot of his battery already, so it's more surprising to see him potentially super clipping just a little bit here. Backing off a bit, he's actually kept things under control there, fair play to him. So Pope there into 4th place, 132.3. Gained 3/10 on that lap. Here comes JB towards the line, he's a 10th up on his previous effort. Up to 3rd place, he's found 2/10. And he's within a 10th here of pole position. And a 1,000th in front of Harrison. So JB jumps to 3rd place, fantastic lap. Of course, both Huff and Imrie about to put lap times in of their own. So Imrie, of course, can't take pole. The highest he can start is P6 in this race, thanks to that 5th place grid penalty. Huff, his closest challenge is going to be looking like it could be Harrison. Pope just put his lap in. Dan is going for his lap now. He's getting a good tow from 10th. He's up by 3/10 in the 2nd sector. 10th herself be gearing up for her last run in a matter of moments here, but Dan is going through turn 14. And looking to try and get himself on top here. Down through turn 16, going to ride on board as he charges towards the line to complete its effort. And it's a big change there, 131.7, big gains for Daniel Aron, who puts himself into provisional pole. But can he keep it? That's the question. Took pole position last week and looking for pole number 2 of the season. And a driver who hasn't had the best qualifying record in the past in this league, looking to try and turn a corner here as we enter the last minute of qualifying. Harrison about to start his final run, Pope in the pit lane here, so he's called it quits. He's done his laps. Harrison over the line. So the top 5 here, minus JB, all currently on minus JB and Dan, sorry, all currently on last lap. So Huff, Imrie, and Harrison, the ones to keep an eye out for here. Imrie gaining a little bit there in the first sector, with a slide there as he left turn 6. So keep an eye out. Huff coming through to complete his first sector now. He's rounding turn 4 and towards 5. The split at the exit at turn 5, and he's up by a 10th and a bit. But needs more than that to try and take Dan on. Dan's put a fantastic lap in here. And that's going to take some beating. Down the field here. Here comes Curtis to the last corner. Checkered flag is up, running wide there. And smashing the ball up with the straight mode out of the way. Curtis locks himself in at P9 at best. The Audi of PJ in behind him. PJ stays in P10. Next car through will be the two McLarens. Next cars through will be the 2 McLarens. 10th getting a good tow here off of Dan. Down towards turn 14, makes the pass. Yellow flags are out. And looking for that last corner. Up towards the line for 10th here. Where will she put herself? 10th to P7. Dan maintaining P1. Imrie towards the line. Can he put himself in a higher spot and avoid that penalty? Imrie into 2nd place. It'll be P7 from at best here. And that's banking on Huff not improving. Huff locks up into turn 14. Goes wide there on corner exit. 80 to P4, JB still in P5, Harrison up by a 10th himself. Not going to be enough. It looks like Dan's done enough for pole here. Huff rounds the final corner, improves, but it's not enough to take 2nd place back. He'll take it for the race start. Harrison to 3rd place there, so Huff down another spot. Harrison then will start in the front row alongside Dan, it seems. As Cott and HB Cook, Lucky and Alvar, the last few cars come to the line. Looks as though Dan is on pole for the 2nd week in a row here. He'll lead the grid to the first corner. Lucky Lambert himself rounds the last turn across the line. P16 for Lucky. Next car through HB Cooks goes into slots in P13. You saw Cott into the pit lane. Alvar through for P15. And a fantastic lap at the very end there from Dan to take pole for the 2nd week running. So it's Dan will start first. Imrie qualifies P2, but will fall down to P7 here for the start. Harrison qualifies third, and it's Huff P4, Haiti P5, JB, fantastic lap for him in P6, Pope P7, Shadow Rain in P8, highest reserve. For tonight, 10th Cam P9, Curtis Shepard rounds it on top 10, PJ P11, and it's Cotton P12, Cook, Ben, Alvar, Websy, Lucky, Ethan, and Connie, the rest of your order, but Dan on pole. And it should be a very, very exciting Grand Prix here, to say the least. Well, that will do us then for Chinese Grand Prix qualifying. Have a quick look here at your results before we go into the brief intermission before the start. Don't go anywhere, because this is going to be an absolutely fantastic race. We'll see you guys in a few moments. Welcome back then, welcome back to China for the start of round 2 of the season here in the Racers Driving League Season 21, the Chinese Grand Prix, minutes away from getting underway, and it should be a very exciting race here, qualifying with anything to go by. Down on pole, he'll lead Harrison for the run to the first corner. Harrison just his second full-time start, contended last time out in Australia, and could have been on for a potential podium finish, but things got in the way late on, brought out a late safety car that changed the game, allowed Grumio to win. No Grumio on the grid this week, so looking at a different winner here in this second round. As we look at your circuit going into today's race, the graphic, of course, designed by our very own JB. 16 corners on the circuit, of course, the highlight being the opening 4 corners, that very tight, twisty first part of the lap. Heading down towards that hairpin at turn 14. Braking zone's got to be on point there. We've seen a number of drivers lock up there in qualifying. Batch will always be crucial to use down that long back straight as well. 4 straight mode zones go down towards turns 1, 6, 11, and 14. And should hopefully be an exciting race. And weather also might play a bit of a factor here. As we've got word from our correspondents down in the pit lane, we could potentially be seeing 2 different stints of rain over the course of tonight's race. Whether it'll be strong enough to warrant a switch over to the intermediate tyres, even the wet tyres, depending on how strong it is, not too sure. But we could be looking potentially at a race that goes dry, wet over the course of the next 28 laps. But it should be something to keep an eye out for. And it's already quite cloudy as is, so whether we'll see it perhaps sooner rather than later, whether we'll see anyone actually make the start on the intermediate tyres to avoid any sort of comeuppance later on in the Grand Prix. It looks like everyone's going for the dries. Yes, everyone on dry tyres though, so rain on the way, but not here just yet. So here's your starting grid. Then Dan starts from pole position. It's TTRE Harrison starts alongside him, P2 in the Alpine. Huff qualifies in 3rd place, obviously provisional pole setter early on in qualifying, but was beaten by these 2 on the front row. AT starts from 4th place. The onus on him to try and score some points for the Silver Arrows with no Grumio in the picture. JBP5, podium last week for me in Australia. Can he go 2 for 2 you never know. It could happen with the right set of circumstances. Pope in P6, he'll lead the charge for Ferrari. Imbri qualified in P2, but took a grid penalty for a collision with PJ in the pit lane during qualifying. He'll strip down to P7 for the start. He starts alongside reserve in the Cadillac. Shadow Rain in place for Remco this week. 10 Cannon lines up P9, looking to add some points to the tally for McLaren. Didn't score last time out. 12th place finish for her in Australia. Curtis lines up in P10 for Haas. Again, Curtis got P8 in last week's race, so trying to get some more points for Haas. Cott in P11, reserved for Mercedes tonight in place of Grumio. So can't score points, purely pride on the line as always for Cott. HP Cook starts in P12 here, leading the charge for RB. Ben behind him in P13, and it's Albar P14. Can he try and go 2 for 2 for points for Aston Martin? Works do though, the number of strong challenges in today's field. Websy P15, largely out-qualified by his new full-time teammate in Huff. So looking to try and push forward and push himself to those same heights that got him points last week. It's PJ P18, the lead Audi for the race start. Lucky Lambert in P17. Ethan in P18 and Courtney Goblin in the Cadillac rounds out. Your bottom four there, all starts got hard tyres. Same thing for Alvar, Cott, Imri, JB and AT. So that is 9 hard tyre starters there, and that'll be another 10 on the medium tyres for the go towards turn 1. So I'll count them here as I can. But Dan round the last corner here, and we'll see how he positions himself for the race start, because Grumio and Harrison, I'm guessing, be quite different customers when it comes to the charge to the first corner. We've seen these two, we've seen Dan and Grumio often try and sort of come back to each other straight on the off. And we'll see what Harrison provides. If he can get himself a good enough start, might try and cause a challenge to the rates of the pole sitter for the run towards turn 1, of course. Very tight, twisty first 4 corners as the last few cars now taking their places on the back of the grid. Ignore those race strategies. We rain in play today as Courtney Goblin comes to the back of the grid with a big head of steam there and missed his grid spot completely. But everyone else gets in nice and comfy here and waiting now on that race start. Lights on here in China to get underway for the second race of the season in the RDL Season 21. Long hold. Lights that foot to the floor, and we are racing here in China. Good start from both cars on the front row. Down with the better start, though. Might try and cover Harrison off for the race to the first corner. Huff tries to go around the outside. Can't make anything happen. A bit of contact there. May have taken a bit of damage potentially on the front with that Red Bull, as everyone keeps it nice and tidy going through these first couple of corners. JB up a spot over Imri. Those two side by side going in through turns 3 and 4. Imri in front of JB. He's down a few places here. Shadow Rain losing out to 10th Cannon. 10th might go for JB now as well, potentially. But a poor exit out of turn 4 towards 5 means Shadow Rain pulls back alongside in the reserve Cadillac as Ettic goes AT going through with both Ferraris there. A bit of contact. JB goes wide in the background there. JB falling out the points completely to recover to what looks like P15. So tough start then for Williams with both their cars out to the side of the top 14 now. But Dan shows the way from Harrison second place, Huff in third, I believe Huff has got away with it. No damage done to that car, so he's maintained himself off the start here. But Harrison considerably closer to Dan than Dan is to Huff. Cars off in the back there. Yellow flag out once again. That's one of the McLarens. That's 10th Cannon down the field here. You saw a car go shooting off there and taking out one of the straight mode bollards. 10th Cannon's got, I'm not sure if he's got damage or not. I have to see here. So one McLaren at the top of the field, the other one now at the tail end of the order as Courtney Goblin moves up into P18. Everyone gains one place. JB down to P16 here. It's getting worse and worse for him off this start. I'm guessing he must have damage of some kind. But JB now slapped himself back into line and looking to get back to work. It's Dan in front though, a considerable advantage, about 7/10 here, 3/4 of a second over Harrison in second place to come through to begin lap 2. Overtake in play for the first time here for those cars within 1 second of the car in front. AT missing out on that. He's 1.4 behind half of the minute, which could leave himself as prey to drivers like Pope, Shadow Rain, Imri behind. Ben up to P8 here. He's had a fantastic start, as it was for him last week. So Ben getting fantastic on these first laps here. He's up 5 spots. Webbsy's up 6. So both these two making great progress here in the early part of this race. See Curtis trying to challenge Webbsy as they lead turns 3 and 4 towards 5. Both cars on medium tyres for this first stint. The question is, how long will they be on those medium tyres for, given that there is a threat of rain coming? There's still sort of blue patches in the sky over there in the early part of Sector 2, but nothing doing in terms of weather for the time being. But we will see it, and we'll keep you posted as to when the first raindrops do start to fall. But it appears we've got a top 3 breakaway here. Huff was close to get back in on Harrison and your race leader Dan. So we've got a lap and a half into this Chinese Grand Prix. AT still in 4th place, but it's got Pope right at his tail here. Pope lifting up, backing off to try and gain himself a little bit here in terms of battery. He's got a full tank there, an overtake and deploy as well once he leaves turn 13. Shadow Rain in behind these guys. A nice little Ferrari sandwich here with Imri in behind. Still obviously reeling from that grip penalty he got in qualifying. So tough break for him to focus on that. As Harrison up front trying to close in on Dan. Yellow flag in behind once again. That's another car that had a problem, I think, here. That's what that is. Websy's slow on corner exit. I think he's recovered himself, but down to P14 now. Matt's tucking behind Alvar. Potentially Matt's tucking behind JB here. So a number of cars here pushing in front of Websy. He tries to challenge JB on the inside at turn 14. Lock up on one of the cars ahead. Either PJ or Alvar, not quite sure here, but 2 veterans going at it as they lead the last couple of corners. Harrison Huff sitting fastest lap simultaneously here as Harrison 3 tenths behind Dan in the race for P1 as we start lap 3 of this thing. It's side by side between PJ and Alvar. No points, just prime the line here between the Audis and the Aston Martins. JB going to try and challenge on Alvar now. Goes to the inside into turn 1, takes P13 away. JB now getting himself nice and involved in the scraps early on, trying to get himself back to the field. But Alvar on the inside there, very tight line through turn 2, but keeps the car under control. Works a fair bit on the AI drivers in this game, not so much on other players. So Alvar then still side by side with Ethan as they leave turn 4. Lucky making the pass here on HP Cook. Lucky making a bit of progress here. So both Williams cars try to come back to the order as Cook holds on to P10 for the time being. Websy tries the outside, but to no avail. It's up front. You can see Shadow Rain making the pass on AT for what is now 5th place in the row. Pope has dispatched both of them. Pope into P4. 12 points currently going that man's way. Imri in P7. Needs to get himself around AT and Shadow Rain sooner rather than later. Makes his move to the inside. They're going down towards turn number 11. Side by side here with that silver arrow as they head into the left-hander. Imri clears him, keeps himself nice and steady in the race up towards turn 13 now. Straight mode about to come back into play once again. I think a heat battery being used as well. Harrison quite close to Dan. Dan trying to break the toe here as they charge down towards the hairpin. Huff trying to make some progress, but to no avail as of right now. It's all single file here. You can see the entire pack there on the way down towards turn 14, save for Cockney Goblin, who's fallen back a little bit here from 10th Cannon in P18. I'm wondering when we're going to see those first few drops of rain in this thing, as Imri and Shadow Rain side by side as they lead turn 14, go through 15. Shadow Rain gets himself back in front. The Cadillac draws ahead of the Ferrari once again, but Imri's going to have a second bite of the cherry here as the AT running wide out of turn 16. Keeps the car on the wraps though, keeps himself within overtaking range. Imri not close enough, will hold himself in line for the time being. Will he try and go for a move at the inside here? Potentially looking for a move on the Cadillac, but getting out of shape a little bit, sliding up the racetrack. So holding on to P6 for now and not making as much progress as he might have liked here. He's going to try and get himself around this reserve as quickly as he can to try and keep with Pope. Those guys equally 4 seconds behind the third place car of Huff as Imri now tries the inside there, goes into turn 5, contact being made then, and the Cadillac goes wide and off the circuit, recovers himself. Shadow Rain falls to P7, but Imri into P5 now. So currently 22 points going Ferrari's way. It'll be their first points of the season if they can hang on to those. Long way to go in this Grand Prix. Pope making his way in through turn number 8 now. And there it is, the first few drops of rain reaching the circuit now. So we could be looking at our first set of intermediate tyres in the next few laps or so. Dan holds the train up front. Harrison still in second place, Huff still in third. Lucky making a challenge here on Curtis behind him in P9 now. So Williams back in the points for the first time since the opening lap. JB making no progress right now. Still stuck there in P13. PJ in front of him. PJ going deep there in through turn 11. So JB gets his chance now and tries it on the inside and makes the clearance. Move JB into P13, but it slides a little bit there going through turn number 13. Down the backstretch, they run towards 14 now. Does Ethan have a move potentially line up in his first race of the season for Audi? Down towards turn 14. Ethan not close enough though, but Alvar's got other ideas. There goes Alvar to the inside and Aston Martin. He's gunning for what looks to be P14 here. JB goes a bit wide, a number of cars into the pit lane. I think the pit's going to get very, very busy here. A few cars staying out. 18 Pope making contact there. Imri almost off into the barrier. A la Hamilton 2007 back in China. And there it is from race control. Low grip, straight mode and boost have been limited here. So no overtake mode, at least on for the time being, thanks to these wet conditions. And he's getting quite wet quite quickly here, and straight mode limited. So the straight mode will still come into play thanks to the it's similar to DRS in previous seasons where obviously it be turned off in wet conditions. Because both the front and rear wings are opening, it's safe to keep them both open, but the straight mode zone is shortened by a little bit here, so things getting deployed a bit later. Yet really yet to see a lot of wet racing so far in real life Formula 1 in 2026. So I haven't seen much of this. I only really saw it in Miami during the sprint race. But getting our first taste of it here in the RDL in just our second round of the season. And 3 cars stayed on the circuit. And I'm wondering, based on what Websy's doing there, the big slide out of turn number 6, if that beats their detriment. As Shadow Rain leading for the first time, but now quite slow. And Dan's on fresh tyres. He's on fresh inters. And see how quickly he's managed to catch Websy there. So these 3 may have shot themselves in the foot as Websy slides out the way there. And Dan goes through up into P3 again. Harrison around the outside going in through turn number 9. So Harrison holds on to things for the time being. He'll take away P4. And there goes Huff, Websy's teammate, going through. So those 3 continuing on, but the gap a fair bit wider now compared to how it was earlier. PJ, next car in line for Dan to try and take. And where is Shadow Rain? There he is going through turn 13, keeping the car under control, but losing a lot of time, I should think, here. So may likely find himself tumbling down the order. Look at the speed Dan's got there on the way out of turn 13. He's going to get a good run on PJ, and he should make that pass easy as pie there down towards the right-hander. But PJ still staying side by side here. Both cars quite close. I think Dan backing off, but now going for it. Locking up the inters, going through turn 14, but keeps the car under control. And I think we see Shadow Rain in the pits this time. And I'm not quite sure that the decision to stay a lap longer has really worked for any of those 3. Websy down finds himself down in the 6th spot. And I think he's very lucky to be down where he is now. Dan holds the lead now. Harrison running in P2. And Huff is a 3rd place. Next car in line will be... But Websy's staying out here. So Websy's going for a bit of a... I'm not quite sure what he's playing out there. So Websy's staying on the circuit. Pope in P5, ATP 6. Where is Imri? Imri's down to P12 here. I'm guessing that's the double stack has not worked out at all nicely for Ferraris. One of their drivers now only just on the verge of the top 10. But Imri's got work to do now. We'll see how he is on these intermediate tyres. Might try and challenge Lucky and Curtis in the race for the 8th spot as Websy continues to tumble down the field here. Websy down to P6 once again. Sliding again. Caught a snap of it out of turn 4. Websy then down to 6th place, and the only car still on dry tyres. And wondering here exactly what his game plan is. Very, very odd thing to try and pull off here. And based on what he's doing, I'm guessing that this means that the rain's going to stop, and it will stop shortly, I should think. There goes Ben around the outside. Ben in the points-paying places now. He's worked out quite nicely from the pit stops, it seems. HP Cook down in P18. So those 2 are quite close together, let's not forget, during that first stint. So Ben has come up front at the right time and now sits in 6th place as Websy is really causing a sort of a hazard here for all these guys on inters. And it's close to contact. Alvar came very close to running into the back of that Red Bull. They're 3 wide at turn 11 with a dry-tired car in the middle. I'm not entirely sure that's the right place to really be if you can help it. But Alvar into the points-paying places now. Websy down to P11, P12, almost P13. Attempt gets through as well. And things have not gone to plan for the race-winning veteran as Websy now falls to P13. And I can't see him not pitting this time. I think not pitting on the last lap was not at all the right call, to put it mildly. I see Imri now challenging Curtis. So he's managed to get himself back around both Lucky and almost the Haas here as they round turns 14 and 15. Ben just in front, these guys. He's about 2 seconds ahead. As Imri will have the inside into turn 16. Keeps the car on the white lines. Slide from Lucky on corner exit. Will hang on to the car. But Imri into 7th place here. And currently running 18 seconds back from the race leader Dan. It's Harrison by 1 second in P2. It's another 3 back to Huff. As Websy now finally calls it quits and enters the pit lane. And intermediate tyres going onto that car. Websy might be banking potentially on a safety car here. And at a time when the majority of drivers here from the UK can be doing with a bit of rain to just sort of stave off the heat, the rain is definitely starting to come down here in China, and I imagine this won't be the last we see of it. There's still 21 laps to go when they cross the line. And again, sources have been telling us we're potentially looking at 2 different periods of rain in this race. So if that's true, then we should expect to see things dry up very quickly here, or at least the rain to stop very soon. But for now, though, it's all Dan by about a second, and we'll see how Harrison handles things in the wet. Of course, was in the slight rain in that reverse grid finale in Austria at the tail end of last season. Of course, made his reserve debut, came through and crossed the line first. But of course, TJ took the points, being the finishing full-time driver in first place. And Harrison now finds himself within that 1 second gap. The wet conditions perhaps working in his favour a bit more here as they head in through turn 14. There's now 8 tenths separating these pair. Huff in 3rd place now in no man's land. Well, he was chasing those guys. Pope a good 7 seconds behind. ATP 5 Ben in P6, and Imri closing the gap here. He's pulled about a second or two on Curtis, Lucky, and Alvar. Those guys still going at it here. Lucky around the outside of Curtis into turn 14. Goes wide there. It's going to allow Alvar to pull alongside. And Lucky did briefly have P8, but it seems like he's close. He's on the verge here of a potential double whammy, as Alvar can't get around him, so stays in line for the time being, but may get a second chance here down towards turn 1 with a good enough run. Neither car using battery. Well, now neither car using the, I said both cars using battery, none of them using the overtake because they can't for the time being. Boost mode on for both of them. But now Harrison's closed that gap right up here. So keep an eye on those guys. For the back in the field here, Koch challenging JB for P14. JB, of course, fell down the order very early on in this Grand Prix. I think he'd be the biggest dropper for position change. Yes, he is 9 places down on his starting spot. Shadow Rain down 5. Of course, didn't get through too nicely with the bit of contact with Imri. Whether there was contact, we didn't quite see it from the angle we saw it. But he goes to the inside of 10th Cannon here and moves Shadow Rain into P12. Ethan in P11 as of right now. Alvar P10. And Alvar still on the tail here of both Curtis and Lucky. Imri on Ben's tail. Ben's about 5 seconds back from AT, who himself is busy himself with trying to catch Pope. Pope is closing the gap to half a bit. Harrison still on Dan's tail. Might be a good run here down towards turn 14. Might be a good chance for him to try and move into the lead for the first time. Harrison closes in, makes his moves to the right-hand side and looks to be clearing Dan towards turn 14. Move Harrison into P1. He will not be denied. New race leader. And Dan wanted to try and get himself back on his horse as soon as he can and try and track that Alpine down. But it looks as though Harrison's pulling away to a steady advantage here. 6/10 up already after just a few corners as they round turn 16. We're about 8 laps in now to this Chinese Grand Prix. Still a long way to go. And as I say, this won't be the last we see of the rain in any capacity, I should think, over the course of the afternoon. Huff still in 3rd place here, was chasing these guys earlier on that first stint, but has now been resigned to sitting about 4 seconds back in a complete world of his own, and would need some sort of intervention, like a safety car of some kind, to get himself back into the race for P1. It's Imri now in P6, made the pass on Ben. So up 1 place then from his original starting position of P7. Koch has his first penalty of the evening. That's track limits in play for the first time tonight. So the only man with 3 seconds. Currently running in P15 though, so no impact on points as it stands right now. None of the reserves in the top 10 either, so Lucky currently holding on to that last point playing place. Curtis, Alvar, Lucky still together in that little train. Shadow Rain closing in on them. Ethan is right behind in the Audi, and 10th Cannon sort of bringing up the rear of the field here in terms of that gap. That train running from sort of P6 down to 10th and P13, and from there Amy just try and get away from Ben. He's about 2nd clear already, and needs to try and close down on AT to get himself some more points and get Ferrari some more points. Currently running on 20 points. As things stand right now, that'll be enough to jump them up a fair number of places. That's be enough for them to jump. That's be enough for them to jump Williams in the constructors at least. It shouldn't be enough to jump. I don't think it'll be enough to jump Red Bull here. So Red Bull looks to be on course for P2 in the constructors as it stands right now. Dan scoring some good points. If he can win the race or finish in 2nd place and get 10th into the points, that might be enough for them to overhaul Mercedes as well. So a number of things to keep an eye out for here. Down towards turn 14, about 1.4 behind now. Harrison is pulling away. He's found himself another gear of mileage here as he makes his way in through turn 15, keeping the car nice and steady right now. And you see Curtis there challenging Ben down to 14. The move being made in the back there. Shadow Rain challenging Lucky Lambert. Cadillac versus Williams into the right-hander. Looks like the Cadillac's going to win out on this occasion. Saying there's no points on the line for the reserve, although Shadow Rain will be looking in quite good shape at the moment. As again, this fight starts up again, but this time Ben in place of Lucky Lambert as Curtis makes his challenge on the outside here towards turn 1. It's going to be very tight between the V-Carb and the Haas. The Aston Martin may equally try and get involved too. Both cars starting up the racetrack a little bit here. Alvar trying to take his chance on the inside. Gets kill 1, can't get 2. But may well clear Curtis on the outside if he's lucky through turn 4. Corner exit, nothing to be done for the time being. Alvar stays in P9. Curtis came very close to sort of making contact and bumping him unintentionally off of the circuit. So fortunately both cars will stay on their toes here and will maintain their spots in the points. But Ben is currently the bottleneck as Imri now sits 3 seconds in front, equally sits 4.7 behind AT. So closing the gap a little bit here as he slides in through turn number 6, through turn 7, sorry. AT still chasing Pope within that 1 second range. How is the rain looking? Still falling on the circuit. It's difficult to see from further away. But on the TV pod, you can see it very clearly here. As Harrison, I'm sure, will be loving this and want to continue. Now, 2-second gap to Dan in second place, the pole sitter and the sort of runner-up to Grumio in recent seasons being beaten by Harrison as they run down towards turn 14 again. There's still 18 laps to go when the next cross the line, so obviously the pace of the race slowed right down thanks to these wet conditions. You see the fans of the umbrellas here out in the grandstand as they make their way in through turn 16 once more. And will we see the rain stop at some stage in the race? That's the question. Will we see a switch back onto dry tyres? Because that may change the complexity of things once again here, as everyone has to readjust to sort of going flat out on the dry tyres of having to use overtake again. So battery crucial to keep up. AT there, still chasing Pope. A bit closer this time round, but still nothing doing in the way of an overtake. And Imrie not making a ton of progress himself these last seconds or so. Got a nice little 5-car race here for what looks like P7 at best. Curtis round Ben's tail. He goes to the inside here, going towards turn 1. Very tight between the pair of them. Curtis is on the inside. Ben's got given the room there through turns 1 and 2. Alvar by himself in the sandwich between these two fighters. Shadow Rain, Lucky Lambert duel for P10. Shadow Rain wins out on this occasion. Curtis into P7, but wide on corner exit off his line. Ben might try and draw back alongside. A slide there from the Aston behind. And the Cadillac falls away and Lucky gets back around him. Move Lucky back into the points. Of course, Lucky's main focus will be on Ethan in P12. Of course, the Cadillac separating him from the Audi bit behind in P12. As with if Shadow Rain, even if Shadow Rain makes the pass on Lucky, as long as he stays in P11, he'll get the points. His main focus will be keeping Ethan at bay. 10th Cannon about a second back here from the Audi, and not really struggling to, not struggling to keep up, but struggling to make progress and trying to narrow that gap a bit. Costa in P14, still struggling here. Has that 3-second penalty to think about for the end of the Grand Prix. JB P15, I'm sure based after qualifying he was looking at a much stronger race here, but not to be after the instance at turn 1. PJ Khaled then, sorry, Danny is at turn 6 for JB. PJ Khaled sits in P16 in behind. Cook, Cottony, Websey around at your order. Websey obviously still about 7 seconds back here from the Cadillac of Cottony. And still looking to try and hang on to that. Harrison through turn 16. In control here. 17 laps to go. The question is, will we see more rain or the end of it? Plenty more to find out. Shadow Rain Lucky still fighting here for P10. And again, same thing still side by side between Ben and Alva. But equally, Curtis has pulled away a fair bit here. So he's gone away from this fight. So they go 3 wide out of turn 4. Alva caught in the middle here. Not the best place to be in any situation in the wet. And all 3 cars get away unscathed here. Lucky now into P9. And Alva, the ones to keep an eye out as they go Shadow Rain wide through turn 6 for the second time in this Grand Prix. Still keeps himself side by side with the Aston. And up front, 4.6 seconds the gap here. Hope still on AT's tail. And Imrie equally closing the gap. AT also made the pass a little while ago. And aside from that, it's all just single file. The most insane stuff being this fight going on here continues to scrap on. Ben continuing to keep the train at bay here and looking for his first points of the season. Lucky took points last week, trying to go 2 for 2. He was in the same spot at the second flag in Australia, P9. Straight mode in play, using some boost as well, down towards 14. But keeps sort of moving out and tucking himself back into line, so no progress being made here. Shadow Rain might try it. Lucky now pulls out the bag and goes to the outside. Slide there on entry, but keeps himself alongside and pulls clear on exit. Move Lucky into 8th place now. The question is, can he try and pull away from Ben and do the same thing and try and pull a gap as Pope disconnects here from what we're seeing? Says he's left the session, but still going strong in P5. Imrie running in P6 still. And now just 2.2 back from what is now his teammate. He's chasing P5. Huff still in third place. The top three have been secure since the start. The only change those guys being Harrison, obviously in front of Dan now. Really pulling away with it. Through turn 13 they go. Near in the halfway stage here as again the fight carries on here. Shadow Rain now in place to try and take on Ben. He's sort of next in the queue. Lucky is pulling away to about 2-second advantage and might be looking to try and potentially more take on Curtis as Ben continues to hold Shadow Rain back. Shadow Rain and by extension the rest of that training behind down to looking like P17 have all caught up. So that pack behind, Cot, JB, PJ Cook have all closed the gap and are now all sitting in that range. So things open back up again the way Overtaker, that sort of thing. That'll make the field a lot nicer here. Shadow Rain makes the pass on Ben. Of course, Ben still at the points paying places. Still getting two as it stands. Alvar and Ethan, though, with no doubt smelling blood in the water. And looking to try and get Ben if they can. As Ben again up the inside of Shadow Rain. Through turn 14 and 15. The Cadillac Major back alongside with a better exit. There he goes. On the inside, backs up towards turn 16. Playing it safe. And it's like the circuit there. Both cars making contact there. I'm not too sure. I thought I saw something fly off. As Shadow Rain to the pit lane. The rain has stopped. It stopped raining for the time being. Right, so that might bring about the end of this sort of slower portion of the Grand Prix. We'll see what Shadow Rain does. Whether he plans to put on dry tyres or not. Ben maintains P11, but now falling out the points outright. Hard tyres on for Shadow Rain in the Cadillac. So, they're looking at like we're going to start seeing dry tyres now. And we'll see whether Dan can close the gap back up to Harrison here. Websy, hard tyres on for him. It's the second stop of this Grand Prix. Obviously the first one a lot later than everyone else's. This time he sees the first one through as both Cadillacs now stopped. Medium tyres on for Courtney Goblin. Hards for the other two stoppers here in Shadow Rain and Websy. And the track looks to dry quite quickly here. So we're going back to dry tyre running soon. Yellow flag. That looks like it's JB. That's some sort of complication. The car's still running. No concern. No damage done to that machine, it seems. As everyone seems to be struggling for control here on his inters. Both Harrison and Dan are in. Huff moves out in front, takes the lead. So what's Huff trying to try and do? Is he trying to go to pull a big lap out here? Try and close some of that gap down. Hard tyres on for Dan. Hard tyres on for Harrison. And JB penalty here. As Harrison is going to get going, try and get his skates on. Everyone else pit lane behind it. Imri in for a set of hard tyres. He's away. Nice and smooth. Pope stays out in third place here. I think him and AT both trying to do the same sort of thing. But AT considerably further in front now than Pope, thanks to the disconnect earlier. But Harrison emerges as he looks like your net race leader. But the question is, Dan, who obviously looks stronger in the dry in the early laps of this Grand Prix, he's got the entire second half of the race now to try and close him down. And there it is, normal grip, straight mode and boost have been restored. Dry track, and we are back to dry racing. Just 5 cars yet to pit off their intermediate tyres. Alvar, Cook, Pope, AT and Huff. Huff is your race leader. He's currently sitting about 14 seconds clear of Harrison and pulling away a little bit here. He's getting a big amount of time there. I think he's trying to get himself in front as quickly as he can. Yellow flags out as Cott has gone around. Cott struggling for grip there as he gets himself recovered. Medium tyres in that machine. Another yellow. That looks like it's Imri around. Imri's had a bit of a trip through the grass, it seems. No damage done. A lot of mess on his tyres there. He's going to clear that off nice and easy. Huff now about 15 seconds clear of Harrison as he enters the pit lane. Very aggressive entry. AT and Pope I think should be in as well. Harrison rounding turn 14 now. And a Red Bull waiting for him. Hard tyres on. Lucky Lambert penalty. 3 penalties now in the space of just a couple of minutes. Oh, Harrison starting there, leaving turn 14. What's happened there? Harrison very slow. Not entirely sure what just happened. I don't believe it. Half set in front. I'm not entirely sure what I just missed there, but Harrison's fallen down the field and Dan's now your leader. Well, what a big turn that suddenly was. Tony's making the change and no idea actually what's just happened to Harrison, but now he finds himself in third place and with a lot of work to do. And Dan, all of a sudden, after we were talking about him needing to sort of put the pressure on and start to hound Harrison, Harrison made a mistake of his own, it seems. And now he sits in third and Dan leads the way by about 4.5 seconds. Lucky and Curtis side by side. They're lucky one of the few drivers on medium tyres to make the pass on Curtis nice and easy. So in through turn 7. Ethan running P9, Ben still in the points paying place. It's Alvar on 10th side by side through turn 7. This is quite interesting here. Back to dry racing, and these guys are making full advantage of those dry tyres. 10th lines up, covers Alvar off. But the McLaren driver moves herself into P12 and sits one place now out from the points. With one place out in the way of full-time drivers, still want to get around Shadow Rain, then catch Ben. But Ben only about a second in front of the Cadillac in P11. So big change in the situation then as the sun parts the clouds. 12 laps to go here in China. Overtaking deploy for Harrison, but Huff's got other ideas, opening the battery up and going for a bit of a charge there in boost mode towards turn 1. 18 P4, he's got both Ferraris now on his tail and looking for P4 and P5, I should think. Looking for a full 22 points. From AT, it's about 9 seconds up to the podium runners, so I think a podium short for safety car out of the cards for these guys. Lucky Lambert P7, Curtis P8, Ethan currently running for what will be Audi's first points if he can hang on to him in 9th, and Ben in P10. Looking to try and join his teammate as a point scorer in season 21. Quite close to Pope here. And whether we see a move maybe position to it potentially remains to be seen. But all three of these guys all together. Does Pope have anything lined up for AT at all? And speaking of lining stuff up, I asked, does Mother Nature have anything left in store herself? Because we were told there might still be another patch of rain towards the end. The question is, when will that arrive? And if it does, will it favour Harrison, who of course built that huge advantage on the intermediate tyres in that second stint? Right now he's being stifled. As Pope makes the pass on AT, Imrie trying to follow him through, making no progress, but AT a bit wide there. Imrie a tighter line through turn 14, trying to draw alongside. And there goes AT back to the inside. An Imrie penalty. And just went a bit too close there to the inside lines. And penalty in play as his teammate goes side by side with that silver arrow towards turn 1. Let's run on board with Imrie and watch these two play it out. Pope on the inside, trying to get a better run. A bit wide there through exit at turn 2. Into 3. Pope tries to switch back on corner exit. Former champion looking for P4 back. And on the outside here, Ace is going in the space towards turn towards turn 6. Pope goes down the outside. AT goes a bit wide there on corner exit. Pope trying to get involved, can't do it. But all very close quarters here. Pope now tries the inside for a split second through 7. No progress made. Imrie wants to try and get involved himself now. He'll still finish in P6 as it stands. As Pope goes for a slide there through turn 8. That's going to slow down the pace of both cars. And that'll give AT a little bit of breathing room, at least for the moment, but still in overtake range. And Harrison still half second back here from Huff, but both these two equally closing in on Dan for the race lead. 3.6 the gap. Will we see a 3-car battle for the race win here in Shanghai? Will we see rain intervene once more potentially? Questions to be answered in the final 10 laps. Yellow flags out. That's Cott for a second time here. Recovering the car. Round he goes. And off into the inside wall. Gets himself turned around. Not sure if there's damage done to that front wing. Of course, he hit the barrier quite hard there. recovers himself and going to fall to the tail end of the field here. It's been a difficult day for Cott. And he has got damage there. End plate on the left side is toast. So Cott will likely need to stop here, make a change on that front wing. Tough break. Half still hanging on to second place for the time being. Imrie still chasing Pope and AT. Lucky by himself, Ethan by himself. It's still battling between Curtis, or sorry, Ethan under pressure from Curtis rather. And PJ, currently that last point's taking place. Managed to dispatch the V-car with Ben as now Pope making the pass to the inside here through turn 7 and 8 on the outside of turn 8. AT quite close. One of that gets squeezed here towards turn number 9. Pope on the inside and clears the Mercedes at least for a second. The AT back up the inside on corner exit. Cott penalty speed in the pit lane, and that's Cott out of the Grand Prix. As Imrie now pulls out alongside AT into turn 11. Pope slides slightly. But both Ferraris now in front of the Mercedes. And AT, in terms of this last lap or so, the last couple of corners at the very least, have now been well and truly double whammied. And now it's down to Imrie to try and close the gap and try and make a move on Pope. And from there, try and bolt and establish a 3-second advantage to keep himself in P4. If he can take it now on the inside, he'll give himself a great chance. A big lock up there going into turn 14, close to contact between the two teammates. Two drivers very experienced of racing alongside each other. Pope falls back into line. Will he try and hold AT back now? Is there a team game to be played here at Ferrari? Yellow flag down at turn 13. And that is JB. So that's some sort of altercation. But all good carrying on. No call for a safety car or even a VSC. Cott unfortunately out. Things have not gone his way today. Harrison has fallen back big time from half in the last lap or so. 1.8 the gap between the Red Bull and the Alpine. As Pope gets back around. Oh, yellow flag. Imrie's off the circuit. Imrie, I think may have just slid off there. Down at turn 4. Gets himself moving again, but falls down to P6. Lucky P7 has a penalty of his own. Neither one of those cars are close enough to Curtis to lose those places, so it could be a straight shootout between Imrie and Lucky for what's P6 on the road. Unless, of course, Curtis' train catches him. Curtis slides there. Ethan to the inside. But no such luck for the Audi as Curtis maintains that place. Half still 3.6 seconds. Dan holds that lead now. He's got 8 laps to go. Will we see the rain make another appearance? The podium looks pretty locked in as it is right now. 13 seconds from Harrison to Pope in P4. And I doubt that Pope will catch him. AT's still going to try and take P4 back, I should think. Imrie's going to try and close him back in. I doubt he will this late on. He's got 8 laps to try and do it. Lucky in behind him. With Shadow Rain in P10, the last points fall to PJ. Ben is about 2.4 behind these guys. And obviously, he was holding everyone up a fair bit during the intermediate tyre run. And things have been so exciting in the midfield here today. Curtis still hanging on to things. He had a fair bit of an advantage over this train prior to the track drying up again. And now finds himself with a lot more work to do as the Audi's both challenging him for some first points. There goes Curtis, Ethan at the inside. Very close to tyre bang in there. As the other Audi tries to challenge the Cadillac of Shadow Rain. Curtis to the inside here. Ethan falls away for the moment. Audi still currently on the verge of points for the first time in the RDL. Close to contact there. Close to the run-in with the rear wing of the Haas. As Ethan tries to fall back into line. Half closing a bit more now up front. 2.7 seconds the advantage for Dan. And still time for that to close even more. Yellow flag is out. Looks like Imrie slow. May have had another run in as he locks up and goes wide at turn number 11. And Lucky trying to get back around him, but to no avail. But stays right on his tail. Shadow Rain wide there through turn 12. Yellow flag out again. It's Imrie slow. And I'm thinking this could be technical problems, I'm thinking. Because that's very abnormal for the cars to just sort of lose power on a straight like that. I think he's dealing with some sort of issue, if I had to guess. Look how close this contact made there. Someone's lost the end plate, can't see who. That is PJ who's lost his end plate, and that might put Audi's first points potentially in a bit more jeopardy. Imrie into the pit lane here. And this could be game over for him. And there it is. Second, crushing down the road for Imrie and Ferrari. He's out of the Grand Prix. Things fall to Pope then to try and score some points for the team. AT, though, right on his tail. .7, the gap from Huff to Dan. The gap has stayed stagnant in the last lap or so. But does Huff have anything left? Two of these drivers in the top 3 looking for first victories as full-time drivers. And Dan looking to assume the championship lead, I believe, for the first time in at least quite a while. Whether it's the first time in his career or not, he's led the championship. But he's in control as it stands right now. 6 laps from victory. But Huff trying to close the gap down. He'll be on 28 points in this thing through, which should be enough for him to take P2. Greenberg's going to drop down at least a couple spots. Harrison will score his first points of the season. And push him up to somewhere in the top 6 or 7. Hope still in front of AT. It's PJ in front of Curtis at turn 14. Audi, their situation now improved a little bit here, even despite that damage for PJ. They're still hanging on quite nicely here with that broken end plate. And it could be double points, but that penalty may play in things as well. 10th is currently in the points paying place at the minute. And a penalty for PJ and for, I mean, Lucky not so much. Lucky is 6 seconds in front of PJ. But if 10th can maintain herself within this train and keep within 3 seconds of PJ in P7, then she may well score her first points of the season too. HP Cook on her tail though, and looking for some points of V-Car. Ben trying to get himself back involved in the fight as well. But has fallen away here over the course of this third stint. And the sun has well and truly bloomed over the circuit. I'm thinking this will be all there is now for the rest of the Grand Prix. No second stints of rain unless things start to cloud over in the next lap or so. And Dan gets the lead back up to 3 seconds. It's all about keeping consistent here. But with a lock up towards turn 14, you saw there. A slight bit of smoke. Dan hanging on to proceedings here, but loses a couple of tenths to Hartford. A much better corner there through turn 14. And now finds himself almost 2.5 seconds behind. Yellow flag is out. That is, looks like JB's around. And off in the grass there, out of turn 6. Things have not gone to plan for JB. That the euphoria from that podium last week all of a sudden turned back to despair. Oh, AT wide there through turn 16. Had control of the car for a second, couldn't save it. Or rather did save it, but had a bit of a wobble for a second, and now falls 6 tenths back from Pope. He's looking for his first points of the, or looking for his first points of the season with Ferrari. Try and push them above the V-Carbs, the Hasses, the Aston Martins in the championship. But looking at first full-time podiums here for both Huff and Harrison as things go. And Dan looking for his first win of the season. And we've always seen Dan sort of emerge as the favourite to win in those weeks where Grumio is not about. And I think save for the early instance in last week's yellow flag again. That's JB a third time around. And pulling into the pit lane here. Damage done to that front wing. Just 4 laps remaining here. Huff still 2.6 behind. Needs to find some more time and find it somewhere. His tyres are a lap fresher than Dan's are. Same for Harrison. Pope's equally a lap fresher than both those two. We still got AT right behind him. Lucky still in P6 here, and currently 5 seconds ahead of PJ's got his own penalty. So Lucky on course, some good points for Williams here in P6. That'll put him on 10 for the campaign. So that'll be enough for Williams to maintain P3 in the constructors, but still keep them in a fairly decent spot. As Curtis falls up behind PJ here. He's got both Shadow Rain and Ethan on his tail. This has been such close quarters fighting in this second half of the race. So there goes Ethan to the right-hand side now. Shadow Rain towards turn 1. Cadillac versus Audi once again. The two new teams side by side through the first corner. Both cars through nice and clean. And the Audi wins out as there goes HB Cook to the inside now for turns 1 and 2. Outside for 3. And through turn 4. Falls back in line. But Cook with a penalty of his own now as well. So 10th Cannon on course to score a few good points here, provided she doesn't get a penalty of her own. In which case she'd need to jump into, I'm thinking P11, or at least pass at least one of the full-time drivers in this train, and get herself that point. Or with Shadow Rain being where he is. .8 up front. 3 laps to go. There's 3 tours remaining here of the Shanghai International Circuit. As you see JB then a set of soft tyres. Courtney Goblin in the pit lane. And a set of soft tyres with him as well. Well, they'll see Courtney try and bag the fastest lap for the love of the game. But JB is going to merge behind him here. It's been a difficult race for JB. And after another fantastic qualifying session, of course, you saw him qualify in 5th place. Or start the race in 5th. Down to P17 here. Lucky Lambert up 11 places, so it's a tale of two different Grand Prix for the Williams team. One side of the garage jubilant here, of the race, and looking for that 6th place finish. The other one despondent as JB out the points. Shadow Rain P9 here, just 3 laps to go. And 10th into P10 now, making some serious gains. And Curtis will be hoping to not get any sort of penalty here. It appears that Lucky, the gap is closing a little bit here, but Curtis needs to try and get around PJ and then pull away in order to ensure any sort of chance at P6 in this race. He'll take P7 without shadow of a doubt here, thanks to PJ's penalty, unless he gets one of his own in the final 2.5 laps. Speaking of twos, it looks as though Huff is close to get down to 2.2 seconds here, but it's not enough yet. He needs more than this. He needs much more than this. Dan's got a yellow light there on the fuel in this case, with 2 laps to go. That's what he needs to save some here to try and get himself back to the flag. There's Harrison around the lap to Courtney Goblin. 1.8 the gap now. Huff starting to close in a bit more. Trying to go on a charge here later on, I should think. Dan sort of back and forth in terms of the fuel, using all of it here. And they'll open it up for Huff to try and win, give us a dramatic end to the race. Further back here, it's still a great scrap for what is still P7 technically. Shadow Rain into P8 now. Cadillac in the top 10 for the first time here in this Grand Prix, albeit with a reserve driver. An AT passing Pope down towards turn 6. It's all kicking off here late on. Pope's got a lap and a half now to try and get himself back around AT. No progress made there through his last couple of corners. The track's starting to cloud over again here. I doubt we'll see any rain this late on. At least not enough to actually impact the last lap and a bit, as Pope again makes the move down the inside there. Yellow flags are out. Looks like a slow car. That's JB slow through turn 13, but keeps it under wraps. Half 1.4, 1.3 behind now. Closing the gap a bit more here. And I'm wondering if Dan could be under a bit more pressure as he starts the 28th and final lap of this Chinese Grand Prix. Looking for his first win of the campaign. Huff looking for his first career victory in the RDL. Has he got anything for Dan in this last lap? He's 1.5 behind. I doubt it here. I think he may have given everything he can now. Harrison 7 seconds back. 14 laps ago was in the race lead by a fair margin of about 6 seconds or so to Dan in second place, but things have fallen apart from today in terms of that mistake at the start of the final stint. 1.3 the gap, so Huff still quite close. Dan can't afford any late mistakes or a late penalty perhaps. She's got to keep the car on the white lines, keep the pace up and bring it home, but he's low on fuel, you can see. The red light is on that car. And I doubt he'll run out of fuel in any way. but he's definitely putting him backing off a little bit. Both cars quite low on fuel here, using every last drop as Huff desperately tries to close that gap with half a lap to go. And there's the rain coming at long last here. The second since of it coming. I suppose the race has gone a bit faster than we may have thought it would. But Dan here with Huff a second behind, a lap more, 2 laps more, and Huff may have a chance to win this race. But unfortunately, it's 28 laps long. And at the end of 28 laps, Dan is but 3 corners from his first victory of the season. Blistering pace on display from him in both these first 2 rounds. It was unfortunate not to come away with the win in Melbourne. But as he rounds turn 14 for the 28th and final time, the rain starting to fall. And Daniel Aram will round the final corner from McLaren, take the checkered flag, and a victory here at the Chinese Grand Prix. Dan wins in Shanghai. Huff takes home P2, first full-time podium for the Red Bull driver. Fantastic day for him as well. Harrison, 3rd place. It could have been the race win. You never know, but 3rd place and 15 points, his first of the campaign. Still an impressive result. All the same as Pope goes wide there at turn 14. AT gets back past him through 15. A last-second change there as AT gets in front of Pope and holds the car. 10 points for Ferrari today as Pope crashes the car across the line, and he didn't make it, I don't think. He crossed the line P5, so the stewards will give it to him, I should think, but Pope is carring, didn't make it to the line. I think Lucky Lambert may jump him here in the order. He will indeed. Well, we saw Pope cross the line 5th, so he should be registered there. Shadow Rain P5 as a reserve. Fantastic day for him. Lucky P6. Or so it would be P6 for Shadow Rain, P7 Lucky, P8 for Curtis, P9 for 10th, P10 for PJ, Ether across the line P11, P12 HP Cook, P13 is Ben, P14 Websy. That end of that first stint didn't come to plan for him in the end, so it will be P14 for him. P15 for Alvar, then Cotney P16, and JB your final finisher in P17. But Dan on top then, give it a lap or 2 more, and that race might have been slightly more interesting at the finish as Alvar putting the car across the line backwards. That is just so typical of him. Crosses it. And there we go then. So Dan is the winner. His first victory of the season and the championship leader. And onto the podium there. Again, 3 different constructors in the top 3. McLaren on top, Red Bull in 2nd, and Alpine in 3rd place. Alpine could be a force to be reckoned with after just the no points from last time out in Australia. And all of a sudden, a big 15 on the board from the celebrations to get underway here in Shanghai. Daniel winner and championship leader as well. And the opportunity to try and push forward with Grumio's absence. And try and establish himself as the early favourite in the Drivers' Championship in Season 21. A look here at your final results in Shanghai. Dan wins the race from Huff in 2nd place, Harrison 3rd. AT finishes in 4th place, Pope P5 as he crashed before the line, but he did cross it in 5th. 6th place goes to Shadow Rain as a reserve, can't score. Lucky P7, Curtis P8, and his 10th in P9. PJ in P10, and Ethan will take the last point as far as I'm concerned. Case Cook P12, and it's Ben P13, Websy, Alvar, Pope obviously down in P15 but did cross the line, so P5 for him. Cotney, JB, Imri, Cott, your 2 DNFs. Disappointing day for the pair of them there. I'm guessing equipment failure for Imri. So that'll do us then in terms of the racing action tonight. And post interviews, I'm sure we'll get underway in a matter of moments here as we'll get any arrivals here from the very enjoyable racing. We have our winner in Dan. Welcome into the commentary box and victory today. But I'll say this, Huff and Harrison definitely made you work hard for that one. Talk me through it.
Yeah, that was really tough. It was a gamble at the start between the mediums and the hards, and I think us on the mediums, we really made the most of that gap and the tyre advantage as well. The rain came pretty quickly, like it started raining and it was immediately onto the intermediates. So we were able to get a bit of a lead, and I started with less than 2 laps of fuel. I had to save a lot. Apparently you burn fuel in the rain. I didn't know that. So yeah, had to try and save a bit there, and then had to try and save a bit in the dry as well. So it was a tough race. Huff and Harrison, they both drove fantastically as well. I'm not sure what happened with Harrison because he was comfortable in that one. So it's a shame that he ended up, losing out and finishing P3 because he drove a fantastic race.
I mean, when you saw him sort of go tumbling down to 3rd place, was there any sort of reaction there, or?
I saw him. I saw him on the right side. Again, it might have been like an Albon 2019, I think it was, where he just gets on the exit curb and then has a bit of a spin. But yeah, my immediate reaction then was I just hope that I've managed to gap Huff a little bit because yeah, the when we pit for the intermediates, it or from the hards, sorry, yeah, to the hards from the intermediates. It didn't feel like there was much of a tire advantage. It might have felt a bit better just like staying out. But yeah, it was just a bit of just straight onto the next race and Japan next week.
Well, Japan, obviously, that means with the win today means you'll be going there as the championship leader, if my maths are correct. Is that the first time ever that's happened, or has that happened before? Am I forgetting?
No, I was championship leader for one race back in season. When was I? When did I start being good? I want to say season 18.
Correct,
I
yes.
think I was championship leader after Saudi Arabia there for one race by a couple of points. But yeah, that's but with a good gap, you know. Previously it was only a few points. This is 18, well, yeah, 18 points to the main contender, I think. So yeah, feels good going in. Obviously a little bit of pressure, but you know what's new.
Fair enough then, but nothing new in terms of victory for you nowadays, Dan. So victory in the bag today here in China, your first of the season. So congratulations on that front. We'll come now to 10th Cannon. 10th comes home across the line in P9. Classified P8 within the game, but Pope had a bit of a last second go around at the very end. So, but 10th obviously been fantastic race driven. Top 10 in qualifying, top 10 in the race as well,
Yes.
and first points of the season too. So well done.
Thank you. God, that was a weird race. I don't even know what to say. That was such a strange race. I'm still not over it. I don't even know what to say.
Fair enough. I mean, to be fair, to your credit, there was a lot going on in the second half of the race. There was sort of a big train you sort of got yourself involved in those last couple of laps. Was it sort of a case of sort of locking in there and just sort of trying to weave your way through?
If you thought that was messy, you should have seen the first part of the race. That was crazy, especially with the rain. But no, yeah, I was kind of just trying to hold steady where I was because I saw a bunch of people around me had penalties, so I thought as long as I don't bin it now, I'll be alright. I nearly did a couple of times. I tried several times to give that race away, but nah, it didn't eventuate, thank God. And yeah, it just all went well for me.
Fair enough. Obviously, the transition from dry to wet to dry again, quite a rare one we see in the RDL these days. How did you find the transition today?
Weird, very difficult. Yeah, I know the transition from wet to dry I think was weirder because once the grip came back, it really kind of I was expecting it to kind of hit me all at once like it did with the transition from dry to wet, but no. Um, it was it took a while for the grip to come back, and when it did come back, it was just that was just so much grip. It was crazy. Oh, but no. Yeah, it was just weird race to be honest.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I won't pick your brain in terms of today's race anymore. Then, in terms
No,
of
it's
next,
okay.
in terms of next
Go
week's
for
race
it.
in Japan, McLaren, I think to my mind, likely sitting on top of the constructors now, with you and Dan both
Hey,
scoring points today's race. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong on the maths, but is
I
that a
hope you're
lead you
not.
guys be confident in maintaining in the next few weeks?
Um, I don't know about confident, but there's nothing stopping us from trying. I think definitely the weak link in this title charge is probably going to be me because I'm the slower of the two drivers. But I'm not I'm not phased by it. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen this season. It's a weird season with new cars that are behaving very weirdly. I don't know how I'm going to be, but I'm confident that Dan's going to be good, and that's good to have at least because I know that we'll have that. It's just kind of on me to bring up the rear, I think, but I don't know how it's going to go, but it's not going to stop me from trying. That's the one thing about me is I don't stop trying.
So going into the unknown, unfazed then from 10th Cannon, who comes
Yes, sir.
across the line in 8th place, but classified in 9th thanks to Pope's little go around. Okay, I'll stop mentioning that. We'll carry on with how we are. We'll come now to Huff, who came over in 2nd place again. Huff, first career RDL podium as a full-time driver. Huff, well done. I'll ask you this. if we had sort of 2 or 3 more laps, do you think you could have caught Dan for the win?
So, I don't know. It's hard to say. Um, I felt like I had a lot of pace around like the last few laps. I don't know if it's just better tire wear or not, but or better battery management. But I felt like maybe a couple of laps, but you can't say that because there wasn't going to be. So I'm happy with P2 to be honest. That was quite a solid race overall.
Yeah, I mean, pace was strong across the Grand Prix. Obviously, you were chasing Dan Harrison a fair bit in that first stint. Came into play more in the second half of the race. But I'll ask you this: when you came around on the main straight to take the second place back, did you see anything happen to Harrison at all? Did you catch any of that?
I was in the pits. I noticed it on the map. He lost. I think he just lost the car. But it's so easy to do that. Just switching it between like none and medium, like in the corners. It's so easy to lose a car. So you just got to be really, really careful. Luckily, I've almost done it a few times in that race. So I'm just lucky. It never happened to me.
Fair enough. I mean, I just think second place still quite a strong result. 18 points on the board there. I think that'll take you up to. I'm guessing it'll take you up to P2 in the championship, just in front of Grumio in third, if my maths are correct. Obviously, depending on where AT finished in P4. Do you feel like would you be confident in trying to chase down Dan for the championship lead?
I'll give it my best. I think it's at the end of the day going to be. I'm chasing like a top 3, so Gremio wasn't here tonight, so he definitely would have had a factor in it if he was racing. I think like it was either Dan's or Harrison's race tonight, but I feel like I was just sitting back a little bit, But yeah, I'm not gonna say no. Like I'm definitely gonna try and go for it.
So we'll see what happens in terms of Huff's pursuit to the championship lead after a second place finish here in China. We'll come now to HB Cook, who comes home to my mind. Cook, you might have to correct me on this because obviously you're classified as P11 in the results. Pope went around across the line in P5, so that knocks you down one. But Shadow Rain finished in the top 10, so points go down a spot there. So I'll have to double check in terms of where the finish would be exactly. I'm trying to sort of figure out off the top of my head. But still, a Celtic race for you, Ben, over at VCarb. Talk me through it.
Well, hopefully, I think when I've just looked at the stream back, I think Pope binned it before the line, so hopefully that DNF classifies him with their point with reserves. But now, a very annoying race from our point of view. It's nice when you have a bad quality, you think, oh, actually, this might work, especially with the rain being 5 minutes away. We thought we'd got a lovely strategy with the mediums, and then people were acting like the race would finish on the end of lap 1 in the mid-pat, so happened to 10th up ahead. Apparently something happened to her, so I'm not really too sure. I can't speak today. So apologies about that. But yeah, I got damaged, ruined the race, and then was just trying to recuperate the entire time, but then just ran out of laps.
Obviously, you were quite close, if not directly, obviously getting close to being directly involved in the sort of scraps towards the end of the race. With a lap or 2 more, do you think you could have got yourself some points?
Yeah, I think it was chaotic to say the least in that group. I do think there's a bit of argy-bargy, people turning a bit early to try and defend hard. But like I said, when in these raids, especially at China, it's just a point of what can you do? It's all about battery at the end of the day, and we struggled in the wet to catch up to that train. So obviously, a glitch happened where you can't use hot lap, which I did warn people about previously, but it is what it is. We just set it. So the group was chaotic, but it's just annoying when your whole race does on lap 1. Then when you're trying to battle through, you just miss out by maybe 1 or 2 positions.
Frustration definitely there on that front, HB. I'll give you that. Japan next week, back to Suzuka. Is the aim to get yourself back in the points there?
Yeah, it's always the aim to stop points. I think Ben got really unlucky. I think he got hit a few times as well. So people obviously liking the look of the VCAB, wanting a close look. So hopefully we can get back in the top 10 with both cars. Japan's a track that for some reason I hate, but I'm also pretty quick. I feel like I see that like monitoring a few other tracks. So you never know with these raids. It's the first time I'll be doing a competitive race there, so we'll just see what happens on the day when we rock up to race.
Plenty to keep an eye out then for HB Cook. Watch out for that VCarb going into next week in Japan on the 1st of July. And we'll come now to HB Cook's teammate, Ben, who comes across the line just behind him a few seconds back. Ben, you were a bottleneck there for a good portion of the run on the intermediate tyres. Was there pressure to having all those cars behind you?
Pressure? What pressure? No, there was. No, no, there was definitely a lot of pressure behind me. I just didn't have the pace in the way I got screwed over by the glitch that Cook has just been talking about, and then literally the highlight of my race for that one when I went darting on the outside of somebody. Went up to 7th, I think, from like 13th. So that's the way I've got to score points. That's the way I've got to score points.
I mean, things sort of almost turned up for you guys towards the end of the race, as I was saying to Cook, sort of finishing right in within that train of cars fighting for sort of places up towards the sort of midfield end of the points. I mean, as I say, same thing with Cook. Given a few laps more, could you have got yourself in the top 10?
No, I kept jumping back. Yeah, pretty much as soon as the cars started to overheat, then I was literally seeing duck. I couldn't move anywhere. I was stuck because my battery. It came up on my battery saying the harvest had reached its limit, so I had literally no battery for the following lap after lap after lap. So it is what it is. I think if we had a better qualifying overall, we probably would have had a better chance of points. But yeah, again, screwed over by a bit of a game glitch.
Obviously, qualifying hasn't been the strong suit so far in the first couple of rounds, but I'll say this: your first laps have been impeccable in both races. Is that something you can maintain these next couple of races?
I hope so. I was just kind of hoping the 5 red lights went out as quickly as it did in Australia, but that never happened, did it? So it's a shame, but it is what it is. There's stuff to take this one, including me pretty much being called the Minister of Defence because I defended for about 10 laps with about 8 cars behind me. So that was interesting, I'll put it that way.
So from Minister of the Commentary Box to Minister of Defence, back out on track for Ben then, and a 13th place finish after the Chinese Grand Prix. That'll do us then in terms of post-race interviews, and that'll do it for our coverage tonight here in the Racers Driving League Season 21 Round 2. Next week's race will be on the 1st of July, as far as I know. It's on the 1st. No, I'm getting myself wrong. It's on the 29th of June, sorry. I'm getting my dates wrong in terms of how many days there are in the month. I'll get myself crossed up. Okay, we'll cut it there. We'll leave it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. Make sure to like, share, subscribe for more future RDL content. Have an absolutely fantastic week, and we shall see you all next time. Goodbye.